Hello, and welcome back to the COVID-19 news channel. Have a couple things that are interesting about the COVID-19 news today. Well, one of the primary things is the vaccine. Uh, many people like Bill Gates and others are coming out and saying that it's important that we have the vaccine in order for people to sort of return back to their normal lives instead of just being about flattening the curve and bringing the numbers down. It has been pointed out on some news outlets that for example, the SARS outbreak did not have a vaccine and it did disappear eventually. So waiting for a vaccine could take a very long time. But as you are noticing, with a lot of the information that is out there, including medical doctors from places like, famous medical institutions, basically famous medical institutions and respected doctors are coming out, some anyway, are coming out and saying that really is not necessary to, that lockdowns, the quarantines of healthy people are really not necessary. Because you do need to build up a herd immunity in order to allow the virus to work its way through the healthy population. Obviously, not the people with the comorbidities or the pre-existing conditions that could cause them to lose their lives. But you'll notice that there's the breach between the doctors and a lot of the medical institutions and the political leaders are just, they're just going off in different directions now. The many doctors are coming out and saying, the lockdowns are not necessary. It's causing a lot of damage. You're having drug problems, alcohol problems, suicides, domestic abuse, child abuse, things like that as a result of these quarantines. Not to mention the fact that people are out of work, and they have no income coming in, which could cause, obvious problems like starvation, or deprivation of basic medical supplies and things like that. So I think, it's probably going to be up to the public to put pressure back on governments to just get rid of these lockdowns entirely and say, we need to go back to work. We need businesses to open. Otherwise, the ancillary effects, of this of virus are going to be much worse than the virus itself, as quite a few people are starting to point out. And people are really starting to protest the fact that that these lockdowns are really necessary. They're just ongoing. They're just ongoing, seemingly without end. Which is just crazy. And then the social distancing thing. Some doctors are coming to the conclusion, and it's even been on major news sources, that social distancing really is not that important unless someone is coughing, unless someone is already sick and coughing on you, or otherwise has symptoms, is coughing or sneezing on you, or is very close to you and breathing on you. It really is not necessary to socially distance from people. This is just social control. This is just behaviorism. This is just Skinnerian, Skinnerian behaviorism. This is not science. I mean, this is absurdity, actually. To social distance from each other, from healthy people. If people are asymptomatic, the chances of you getting it are almost nil. And then you couple that with the fact with the quarantine itself, where you have people, families or, couples or people that live together, are forced to stay in the same environment in close contact and not go outside and not get vitamin D, which, has been shown to counteract the effects of the virus, vitamin D and, zinc and vitamin C and hydroxychloroquine or quinine and like Canada Dry tonic water and things like that. people need to get outside, and get out of the close quarters with other people in order to, and one of the best ways to counteract the virus is to actually get some fresh air and get some exercise too, because sunlight or heat actually does kill the virus, and that's been in several newspaper articles. Most notably, one that most notably to me was the Atlantic Monthly's article about how getting out in the public is. And getting out in the sunlight is very important to that end. To getting away from the virus and getting away from close quarters with people. So this quarantining of healthy people is just almost completely unnecessary. It's just mainly, it seems to me, and a lot of governments and a lot of countries just keep extending it, which makes absolutely no sense. Especially with a lot of the cases that seem to be going down. And then to close places like, places of worship, churches and things like that. I'm not a regular churchgoer myself of any faith, but, it seems to me that people should be able to do that if they want to. And, with the liquor stores are open. Why are liquor stores open, but places of worship are not open? That just seems like the priorities are not altogether in the right place. One of the other things that I had to mention was the masks. There are some stories starting to come out now about the masks, and if you are not sick and you're showing no symptoms of the COVID-19 virus, then actually wearing a mask could be worse because you're actually building up moisture inside the mask as you breathe. Hot and your breath is hot, so you're actually trapping germs in there, which could make you sick either from COVID-19 if it's in the air, if it's already in the ambient environment, or you could get sick from something else because you're breathing out and there's moisture obviously in your breath, and there's also heat from your body coming out of your mouth, so you're building up heat and moisture, which is a perfect environment for germs. So wearing a mask is not necessarily going to help that much. Most of these things that we've been told are not really are not extremely important, and it's coming down to the fact that the COVID-19 is really for normal, healthy people who do not have pre-existing conditions or comorbidities, have a very, very less than the common flu chance of dying from this illness. So we really are in an overblown situation where people are making a big deal out of this, and it's really, from the data that I'm looking into, from reading many news stories, and also listening to the opinions of various doctors, reading stories, and listening to interviews from various doctors. It's actually not that dangerous, and your chances of getting it are extremely low. And as long as you're not around people who are symptomatic, showing symptoms, and coughing on you, sneezing on you, breathing on you for a long time. So and the paranoia that we had initially, that from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, was that we could all get it from surfaces, like surfaces, and then the virus lasts for days on surfaces or something. Now they're coming out just this week, last week, and saying no, it's the virus doesn't last very long on surfaces. Obviously surfaces like steel, like stainless steel, it's almost viruses really don't last that long. It's not a good substrate, as they say in biology, for viruses or bacteria to flourish. So, the idea that you can't touch things, it's just paranoia. It's more or less, it is a very highly contagious virus from what I understand, but it's not, your chances of you getting it from surface, from touching a door handle or something like that, it's just not really true. It does not last very long on surface, especially steel surfaces like stainless steel or iron surfaces or things like that. Plastic, if you're touching plastic all the time, plastic does tend to hang on to viruses and bacterial strains longer, but without a host, most viruses die fairly quickly within a few hours. Viruses or bacteria, because they need something to parasite off of, or at least they need a food source, and plastic is not that. That there's a food source around for them to stay alive, or there's a host, you or me, there's a host around, and then certainly they can flourish, they can thrive, but without that, they're going to die fairly quickly. Bacteria and viruses. There is some variation between different strains and types of viruses and bacteria, obviously, but for the most part, they're not going to survive very long without either a food source, like rotting food or something like that they love so much, or a host, of an animal or a person to be their host. So these are some of the things that I've noted. So in my personal opinion, this COVID-19 is really not that dangerous. A vaccine is definitely not necessary. You can counteract most of the effects of COVID by simply staying healthy, getting outside, getting some sunshine, making sure that you have no pre-existing conditions like weakened lungs, any compromising weakened lung conditions, or you're extremely old person, so you are more susceptible to the virus. Then of course you have to be careful, like the thousands that died in old folks' homes in New York and in elderly care places. But other than that, your chances of getting there are pretty low. And vaccines are not necessary. The SARS virus basically disappeared without, and it hasn't returned, not to the levels that it could. And this idea that we have to stay under lockdown forever because, the virus might reappear is really starting to look like just a power ploy. It's really starting to look like this is more in the interest of power than it is about keeping people safe. Because let's be honest, when have governments cared so much about the people as they seem to be caring about you now? What have they done for you in the past that was so great that you now believe that governments around the world care so much about you that they have to lock you down eternally like a child, basically, to keep you safe, to keep you grounded permanently, like you're a teenager that did something bad. It seems to me that people should be able to live their own lives and take risks, calculated risks in their own lives, and especially when they're certain to have major problems if they're not out working. Especially people that own businesses and aren't eligible for stimulus checks and things like that. I mean, these people need to get to work, or they're certain to have major problems. If they don't have any problem with the virus, they're certainly going to have major financial problems, which is one form of death in life is to have major financial problems. It's miserable. I've been there before, and I'm sure most people out there have had problems with that. So it's just a matter of it's a matter of balance, and we all have to. I think at this point we all have to kind of say no, and say that we are adults, and it's time for us to get out there and live our own lives and take our own chances, because we are adults and we are human beings, and it's time for us to live our own lives and take our own chances. And governments are there to protect us to a certain extent from crime and from wars and being attacked by foreign enemies and things like that. But governments can't protect us from viruses. I mean, let's just stop acting. Let's stop pretending. No one can protect you from a virus if you're going to get sick. And this idea that you're keeping everyone at home and destroying the economy is simply absurd. And that's my opinion. That's my very strong opinion on that. No one can protect you from a virus, so let's just stop pretending, okay, that someone can, whether it's the government or the World Health Organization or someone else. They can't do it, and keeping you at home and ruining your financial existence is no way to protect you either. It's absurd. Anyway, that's my opinion, and thank you for joining me at the. And feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment, do what you like, and I'd be happy to hear your opinion. Anyway, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day, and everyone stay safe.